Welcome back to the skating session. My name is Tony Wheeler,
And my name is Thomas Vu.
and this is a special episode with the hot news taking over skating this week. The Shibutanis, 2018 Olympic bronze medalists, after 7 years away, announced this week they are coming back to competition and they're going to make a run for the Olympic Games. What do you think?
You said 7 years, and my brain hadn't fathomed that it was been 7 years away. We're going to talk about a lot of comparisons, but I don't think anyone's come back after 7 years into ice dance. But first, it's my first reaction. I did say something online somewhere about it, but I was like, well, if they're like us, Marina and the Shibutanis, they've been watching the ice dance field the last 3 years, just as we have. I'm not surprised that they felt they could come back and have success. And I believe they will have some success. I don't know the level, waiting to see the skating, but I'm excited.
I want to start by talking about I was at Skate America in the fall and I was sitting with a coach I've known for almost 25 years, a European coach actually. She has connections to the Zueva camp. I think she's actually taken her skaters to that rink in the past. She casually was telling me, "Did you know the Shibutanis are coming back? They're skating. They're going to try to go to the Olympics." This was in October. I listened to everything she said. She told me a lot of information. This one, though, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, sure,
I
whatever.
know.
And I
I remember.
waited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I waited and I waited and I waited. I know I told you, I told a few other people, but I'm thinking in my head like this isn't going to happen, you know. And nationals came around, worlds came around. I didn't really hear anything about it. I'm actually think I asked Amanda Avora when I was at the bar. I think I asked her if they were coming back. I don't remember, but I feel like I did.
Okay.
But I just didn't. I had this in the back of my mind the entire time, obviously. But I just thought, they're not making any announcements. They're not promoting anything. They're two skaters that are very social media savvy. So I thought we would see glimpses here or there. We didn't see anything. Now Worlds is over, the season is over, and now they've kind of gone full force. They have the USFS, they have Olympics, the Olympic official website promoting them.
Oh my.
It's
Yeah.
big. So
Yeah, like clearly. And I remember you telling me back then, and I forgot all about it. That's how much this felt like a nothing. Like, oh, just some rumor. If they're not coming back for this season, they're not coming back. Is kind of what I thought. And then at Worlds, I remember you like, hey, do you remember me telling you this? And I'm like, vaguely. And now hearing this now that it's official, it still feels really surprising. Even if I've heard this now like twice, it still was like part of me didn't believe it, but I don't know. I'm really looking forward to next season, and I would say like in terms of ice dance, I really wasn't. I was more or less kind of being like, oh yay, the Olympics will be over. Can't wait till the next quad. And now I'm really excited to see how next season unfolds. Yep.
I think it is interesting because we talked about this at Worlds, and I think we talked about it at World Team Trophy, and I think this is a more or less a general consensus. The top teams are just not really last year with the programs or this previous season that just ended. The programs weren't really that great.
Yeah.
No one was really standing out, and I think a lot of people were just waiting patiently to get this whole top group out of the picture so that a new group can move their way up and start to reign on ice dance competitions. Now we have two teams coming back, so it's really twisting things up, and it's not what we
Right.
thought was the top three or top four is now going to shift all over the place. We're going to get to that. Um,
And
but
it's funny that when you frame it that way too, thinking about how so much of the criticism I've had about the fandom is kind of these top teams sticking around, right? And then not allowing this movement. It's kind of pushing these other teams down. And now here we are excited that old teams or old skaters are coming back. I don't know. That's just strange to kind of feel both ways about it, but
I think that it's because the Brits snuck their way into a bronze medal this year, but
yeah.
in the previous two seasons, it kind of looked like the top three teams were going to stay that way and nothing was going to change, regardless of what anyone else did, regardless of what some of these technicians right behind them did, they weren't going to be able to break in. So I think
Right.
maybe the excitement is coming from the unpredictability of,
I
hey,
think so,
this
right?
could
And
possibly be a wide open game now.
right, and if you think about, what the Italians, Guinard and Fabri are known for, their skill really is that technical expertise, that precision, those depth of edge. And then I know like we're kind of both rooting for them, even if we never liked their material, we were both rooting for them. And then I think like, oh, the Shibutanis are coming back, and they were literally known for the same thing. They just found a style and programs that work for them. And so I think that's almost like I want someone to break into that top two to do real competition, even the top won, really, that first place. I would love to see real competition in the eyes of the judges for chalk and baits.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as far as I know, because I was told during Skate America, I would assume they've been back on the ice taking this seriously for at least
Hmm.
8 months now, maybe a little bit longer than
The,
that. I don't think they were full force 100% in October. They might have been for all I know. Um, but this isn't, I think, based on what I've read across the internet from all the websites and all the social media, I think some people are under the impression that they made this decision after Worlds and they're just starting right now to get it together.
oh,
I think they've had at
there.
least 8 months, maybe close to a year. That's a lot of time to get back into the sport. So
Yeah,
I
I was about
don't
to say,
think,
like,
yeah,
yeah, people really think they're just now starting to train and made the decision. Do they even know the Shibutanis? They're way more responsible than that. They're
right,
always skaters that take ownership over the process and their skating. You know, I'm on the side of they more or less thought they were coming back when, October, when you found
mhm,
out. They've been
mhm,
trading pretty seriously since then, but they've probably been a solid yes for a few months and we're just waiting
right,
for a time to announce. And they
right.
just didn't want to go the VM route, the Virtue and More route, and do it before Worlds. That's my
Or
guess.
Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron.
Oh, or
Uh,
that, right.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So let's kind of delve into the situation. What are the positives of them coming back? What are maybe the negatives that they face? Starting with
Ah,
positives, they've skated together their whole lives, right? These two have been together from a very young age. They're brother and sister. They know each
yeah.
other extremely well. It's not like they're a new pairing or even a pairing that wasn't together for a long time and now they're coming back and trying to get their skills back. They've started skating under the same guidance, under the same routine. They learned the basics, they learned everything at the same time, they progressed together through this whole experience. So there's no, I think a big part of this is they don't have to relearn each other's way of skating because they already know it so well and this is the
Hmm.
only thing they know. That's taking away a lot of time. They could just get back on the ice and they know the routine basically. So there's that going for them.
Hmm.
um High levels. They're a team we talk about with Guignard and Fabry. This is a team that was known to be technicians, very polished, very clean, always got high levels.
I mean, they're the team that did an 8 rotation twizzle for no
Right,
reason. Other than
right,
that, we can do this,
right.
And
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So they have that going for them. I mean, people can say whatever. It's going to take time to get it back together, but is it really? I don't think.
I don't
I,
think
I
so.
think they're going to be able to pull. I think muscle memory is going to
Hmm.
play a big part of this, and I don't think it's going to take as long as what people assume it might. Along those same lines, because they were known as such good technicians and such clean polish and finish, the skating skills mark potentially should be very, very high. And when you have one mark that is so high, the other two aren't going to drastically be so much lower.
Right.
So they're already starting, at least for that second set of marks, the components, they're already starting ideally at a very high level, and they're not going to have to use the reputation to get back up. Now, let's be real, it's ice dancing. There's a lot of politics probably in play, and it doesn't mean they're going to be handed 9 or 9.25 from the start. They might have to build that back up.
Right.
Is
I
is
expect to
a
see solid eights on their first competition. My bet is what they probably do some senior Bs in the early
hmm
fall
hmm
season. Who knows what Grand Prix they'll be assigned to, but they'll definitely get two as comeback skaters. So that'll be curious,
yeah.
and I'll be curious if USFS is like, let's bring him to Skate America
I
and
was
let's
gonna say I
do a
don't
skate
think
off,
so. I
right? I
don't.
wouldn't
Yeah.
just because it's not like yeah,
hmm
and but
Well,
that's my
actually, you know
bet. We'll see
what?
solid eights.
I don't think they will for the simple fact that Chalk and Bates will obviously, as the first pick, they will choose Skate America. And
Yeah.
then um the
And they probably want to
Italians,
keep the extra spot for
but
another
the thing is
team
the
that for the
Italians,
hosts.
it's the fourth through sixth that
Mm.
gets the next choice, right? And
Yeah.
I can't see Carrera and Ponomarenko choosing other than Skate America because the Italians would have the first choice in that grouping and probably choose Finland or I don't know,
Mm.
maybe Japan is their second choice. I wouldn't assume Carrera and Ponomarenko to choose two events that weren't Skate America. So then you already have the top two from this season going into that event. I wouldn't throw the Shibutanis into there. I think Japan would gladly take them
Okay.
a pick, and I don't know where else, but I just don't see them going to Skate America. Um,
So you're thinking if they go to NHK, they're going to be in a stacked field. Like,
Probably always. They're always,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's why we love
Uh,
NHK.
so one, I guess one thing that is a big question mark. It's not really a negative, but I wouldn't say they were the most creative team ever when they
Right.
were
I mean,
in.
their whole careers, they were just plagued by struggling to find a style that worked for them, that felt modern, that didn't feel kind of like full of mothballs, and that was Marina's style.
Mhm.
And what was it? It was, I mean, it is, she's a very, that's just how she likes to choreograph.
Yeah,
You like it or you don't. What is it? Peter Chernishev that gave them Fix You, right? And then that just, I felt like opened up
that was their.
this
That
our
was
idea.
obviously, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. hmm And even
I
then, I
mean,
remember being like, "Oh, this is so much better." And then I remember it just being one piece of music, and then they put the scientist in the middle, and it just added all this tension and
yeah,
just allowed that release during the twizzles to be so
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. The most perfectly timed Twizzles I think
hmm
we've ever seen in a free dance
Yeah, they're
in
really
history.
unfortunate to have had that program be in the same season as, Build a Home. So
Right.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah. Mhm.
So, but even though they weren't the most creative, Massimo Scully is on their coaching team, and
Yeah.
obviously, I would say that he's going to have a heavy hand in the choreography for them.
He's in California now, though, right?
Yeah, he's in San
Yeah.
Francisco, the Bay Area. So I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe they're going to split time. I don't know, but I would assume based on what we saw from last season. I mean, we've raved so much about Turkila versus Luis, their
hmm
free dance, which was a creation of Massimo's, and then also the other Finnish team that really were the standout of worlds, basically
Really?
the highest. So knowing that he has that behind him, I would say that he's going to give them something that's memorable and make them stand out and really draw out their personalities because I'm sure this is one of the things that everyone on their team is aware of. They need to get an identity quickly. They need to stand out quickly if they're going to make this move in the one season that they have. And I have confidence that he'll be able to find something
Yeah.
that elevates
And I
them.
and they're kind of lucky in that, it's not like the top teams aren't struggling with this. It's not like the Italians haven't struggled with
Right.
packaging and identity for their whole careers.
Right.
And even Chalk and Bates, it almost feels like they're pulling away from what really brought them to the top, that put them on everyone's radar. These character pieces, the Snake program, and so there's a vacuum there for a team to come in and just
Absolutely.
kind of blow us away with something.
Yeah, I mean, you think about 2023, even with Chuck and Bates, they started the season with this very obscure music. I remember I looked it up, and there were like 1,000 views on YouTube for the music, like, very obscure. They had a theme to it. The
Right.
theme just went
Their
nowhere.
love
So then they come
story.
back
Yeah.
to a competition, different costumes, different theme. Like, so all of a sudden the story is completely different. All of a sudden they're back on track to win worlds. So
Yeah.
it's not as if this is like a Shibutani specific problem. This is something that a lot of the top teams they really haven't found or at least stuck with what works for them.
Mhm. Right. And like vibes have been working for Chalk and Bates now this season and last, but who's to say it's going to work for now 3 seasons in a row?
Right.
Because when they went back from, oh, here's our love story, it's all vibes. Oh no, we lost to Fournier-Beaudry and
Yeah.
Sorensen. Great.
Yeah.
Let's go back to opposites, right? Or
Mhm.
just tension, elements,
Mhm.
characters. And I really
Mhm.
want them to come back with something like that. I Although it's really strange. I wasn't always the biggest fan of the Shibutanis. I liked their skating. I admired them when it came to the U.S. competition at the time. I preferred Hubble and Donahue, but I did always prefer the Shibutanis over Chalk and Bates. But that was the old Chalk and Bates. And so I'm really curious now and excited to see what it looks like, how the competition plays out domestically, even if they don't meet until nationals.
Mhm. Let's talk about, I guess, the biggest negative is they
Yeah.
really when you talk about these teams or these skaters that take a break from skating, oftentimes they'll still be in shows, they'll still be involved in the sport in one way or another, choreography, whatever it is. They really kind of step away from skating and they haven't been doing much of anything in the sport for the time they've been gone. Now, that's, I guess, the negative that comes with it is that they're going to have to rebuild their reputation quite quickly, reestablish themselves, basically familiarize themselves to a whole new generation. I don't think that's the biggest hindrance, to be honest. I think if they come out and they have the technical skills that they once had and they keep up and they get back to their old level, I don't think that's going to be such a problem. Um, but again, there's the sport is the technical panel and the judges can basically do what they want. And we'll get into it later how we see with the other team that's coming back. We already see the effects of that on other teams. So
Yeah.
it's anyone's guess, really. I think, I mean, we could have started and ended this video in 20 seconds. It said, "Welcome to the skating session. We don't know the end." Like that really could have been what it was. It's nobody knows
Yep.
for sure, but if you're looking at the positives and the negatives, I have to say that's probably the one biggest thing that they have going for them, or going against them, I should say.
It's that, yeah, I would say that. And then even then, it's like we've seen that the fandom isn't completely excited like we are. I'm really excited because I think about the overall competition. But if I'm somebody who's like a fan of Green and Parsons, a fan of Zingis and Kolesnik, I know this means this, that their
Mhm,
placements go down.
mhm,
And there are only three spots at the Olympics.
mhm.
My bet is Shibutani's take one of them. Chalk and Base take the other, and it's going to be most likely Carrera and Ponomarenko if she can get her citizenship in time. Someone's losing that spot, and it most likely was Green and Parsons. So if you're a Green and Parsons Uber, I get it. I feel that. Like that's you're gonna feel
Yeah,
this disappointment and something that maybe you felt excited about. Green and Parsons going to Worlds, having successful skates there. I loved their Worlds performances. So yeah, it is a little heartbreaking if you're one of their fans.
yeah, it's interesting though because remember Green and Parsons were actually, I think it was they were ahead
They
of
were,
Carrera and
yeah.
Ponomarenko
Hmm.
before, they had a disastrous season in 2024. That free dance I think I mentioned at Worlds, it was so bad. They should have gotten rid of it after Skate America. The audience reaction even there was very tepid. Anyways, that made them really get off track quite a bit in their progression because they were, I believe they were sixth at Worlds in 2023, somewhere up there, and
Yeah,
they
2023, six.
yeah, so they were ahead of Carrera Ponomarenko. They were looking like they were that next team in line. They lost steam. The interesting thing that I go back to is, and we talked about this, is Carrera and Ponomarenko, in at least in US judging, it's like the judges don't really want to push them up into that second spot. So I question, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, if Green and Parsons were at this level at one time, could they potentially also leapfrog over them? And then it's Carrera and Ponomarenko that are really the ones that are on the bubble. I really like the work that Green and Parsons did with Jean-Luc Baker. I think
Yeah.
he
Hmm.
really did a good job, and
I
I
agree.
I have no doubt if they work, I'm guessing they're going to work with him again, but I have no doubt he's going to come up with something really, really good for them in the Olympic season. So I think that it adds another layer of Now the Shibutanis, I would say, if they come back to any level that they once were, even close to that, they probably will be at least second. I don't see them pushing Chalk and Bates out of that top spot. It looks like they're destined to win the Olympics no matter what. Honestly, I don't see
Yeah,
that that's
most
but
likely.
then I question, what is, as Carrera and Ponomarenko are now fifth in the world, what is that going to do to their progression? Because they're ideally maybe going to drop as well. It's just a lot of question marks what this one little move is going to do for the rest of the people. And I understand the fandom being. I've seen a lot of comments all over the internet, and there's some personal details about supposed this beef between them and Chalk and Bates. And I saw a video actually on Reddit of Chalk and Bates being presented the gold medal, I think at 2024 Nationals by the Shibutanis. And Madison has this big smile on her face. And the second the Shibutanis turn away, the smile just like completely drops off her face. So people are saying, oh, yeah, like they obviously don't like each
I
other.
mean, Chalk and Bates and Hubble and Donahue said it without saying it at the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
team event at the
yeah,
Olympics, where literally
yeah,
they were like, after that, they agreed with each other to share it. If they had the
yeah,
opportunity, let's share this.
yeah.
And just by publicly talking about that, they're implying a lot
Of
that they
course,
felt
of
shut
course.
out,
Yeah.
in a certain way about it the last Olympics.
So
So makes
let's
sense.
jump into that really quick, just so people maybe aren't following.
Oh,
According
yes.
to the reason I don't think USFS has ever published this officially, but the reason we have an idea of why this happens is because Adam Rippon in his book said that the way that the team event was chosen, at least in 2014 and 2018, is what we're talking about here, 2018, they go by world standings or world standing points, I guess, and the top two disciplines, the top skaters in those disciplines get first choice at the team event. So in 2018, it was the Shibutanis were the number one team, and Nathan Chen was either the number one or he was next in line. So the Shibutanis decided they wanted to do both segments of the competition. when if you're the first choice, you could technically say, and especially because at that time there were three teams that were very close
The U.S.
together.
dance, right? Hmm.
So at that time they could have said, "Oh, we'll split it. We want to basically hand a medal to another team that's on the same level as we are." Let's be real. They're scoring very similar. I don't think it was going to make a tremendous difference in the
Hmm.
standings. They decided they wanted to do both events. That was their choice. Obviously, Mirai Nagasu ended up getting an Olympic medal because of that, because the women ended up splitting events. But yeah, we have seen documentation that the other teams were not pleased with that situation, and it does. I've read, I've read a lot of theories. I've read a lot about what the politics were between Marina and Igor, and what the Shibutani's dad supposedly had this big part in all of this. And a lot of
Hmm.
people are running on this as a way to not really support them. And then they also, I've seen comments about how if you look at the Shibutani's social media, you see that a lot of skaters are not following them. A lot of skaters are not resharing the story.
Interesting.
I think there was a US pair skater who either posted her on her own or reposted someone else's comment that if you're going to come back, it should be a rule that you have to come back in the season before the Olympics, so that you're not taking away a spot from somebody else. So there's a lot of opinions here. Um, like I said, I'm all for. I don't know if it's my personality is just, if you are one of the best, it doesn't,
Right.
for me it doesn't
I don't
matter.
see
Like
that. Yeah.
there's no
There's no
waiting
taking
in
away of
line.
spots to me.
Right.
Right. It
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
competition is what it is. You need to be the top three, and that's it.
Right.
That's the only it. And if you're not in the top three, you didn't make it. I'm sorry
Right.
in the field.
And
Yeah, I
and
don't see
as
that.
our new friend Brian Boitano said when he came back, uh it was either in the fall of 93 or maybe even in the spring of 93 when the ISU announced they're going to do this reinstatement. He did an interview at it was either at Nationals or at a cheesy pro-am or something. There was this whole segment about him coming back, and some of the other skaters were not so pleased about it. It actually might have been the Olympic test event in Norway in 1993, late in 1993. But anyways, he said, if you're better than me, then just go out and beat me, and that's
Right.
truly, like, that's what it
Hmm.
comes down to. And Scott Davis did beat him that year. He was national champion. Brian obviously didn't have the Olympics that he wanted to have, but he was making the point that, he's not going to get handed a spot. Like, if you can work just as hard, and
Hmm.
that's it. And
I
politics
agree with that.
aside,
And it is ice
it's
dance, right? We know it's
yeah,
ice
yeah,
dance.
yeah,
But
yeah,
even that, considering the Shibutanis, I would still say the level that they left out on, right? 2018, it's better than anything we're seeing domestically right now.
yeah,
That's my opinion. So
yeah, yeah. They
I'm all
just
for
they
it.
just need something to set themselves
Yep.
apart. And I think Massimo, you know,
I have faith in
yeah,
Massimo. After
me
seeing
too.
his work this season,
Yeah,
yeah,
agreed.
he's the choreographer of this season to me, really the
Yeah,
best choreographer of the
100%.
season.
Everyone should be trying to go to him. Everybody. I
Yep.
mean, after seeing the variety and the versatility of the dance programs. I
And
mean, even
that's
Alyssa's short program. I know he had a hand in Chuck and Bates's free dance, which I wasn't amazed with, but
You can't fix a
it's
bad
okay. It's
concept.
okay.
You
Exactly.
cannot fix a
Yeah.
bad concept.
Yeah.
You really
So,
cannot. Right.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think that I'm all for it. I hope we talk about the judging maybe going extremely in their favor, but I also hope it's not a case of the judges just pushing them down just because of all this outside tension
Yeah.
or whatever is
I don't
going
think they
on.
will. That's always existed. Unpopular teams still score well. And we've seen that at this last Worlds. It's not like yeah, I don't think the judges are as connected to the opinions of the fandom as we would like to think they
Yeah,
are.
I mean, I think a lot of people think they're basing all of their stuff on the
Yep.
feelings of what is being posted on the internet or what social media is saying. But anyways, let's also focus on Guillaume Cizeron coming back with Laurence
Yes.
Fournier-Beaudry. They announced this before Worlds, so this was the big story kind of at Worlds, with everyone in the back of their mind
Right,
thinking,
yeah. They did
hmm,
the Virtue and Mara. Let's do it before
yeah, yeah.
Worlds for possible
So
reasons.
I know that I think they both actually hinted at it a little bit on social media without going full force.
Hmm.
Um, Positives for them. Obviously, name recognition for him. Olympic gold
Yeah.
medal. I mean, one of the most dominant part of a most dominant team ever in the sport.
And the Fed
Yeah,
backing. To me, that was the most surprising thing that the Fed's already like,
yeah,
here's our hope. Right
right,
after one of their
right.
teams won a Euro medal.
Yeah. And but and that's and we talk about other teams really losing out, and this is an example
Mhm.
that you have to put into consideration because, in my opinion, watching Lopetegui both at Worlds and at World Team Trophy, the judges and the technical panel are finding this or that. Worlds was not great for them. I'm not going to sit
Yeah.
here and argue that they should have been in medal contention, but just chipping away kind of at those scores little by
Mhm.
little, and all of a sudden they're losing to Davis and Smolkin, and it's I think the writing is on the wall for them,
Yeah.
unfortunately, at least for next year, and it
And
probably is going to derail their progress as well, just because of a team coming back for 1 year.
and I just want to emphasize, like, I know a lot of folks, even if you think this is true or not, they tend to think that judges are doing this intentionally, all of them, that they're like, oh, they're the number two ranked team, so they shouldn't be getting any higher than this. I think so much of it is subconscious because we all have this bias, and if in your brain you're like, this is the number two team, you're not going to give them fours and fives. You're just not.
Right.
And being that number two team, the fact the French Fed is already saying, here's our number two team, even if they're the top team here at this competition, you max out in psychologically at a plus three, plus four,
Right.
right? Plus four is now your top and
Right.
instead of that plus five. So yeah, it's the Fed backing to me was the most surprising thing, but I think that's what they'll have really going for them. I expect them to come back and get eights, solid eights in PCS. I'd be interesting to see though if they just go on the Grand Prix or if they try some senior Bs first, like
I think
the
I
the
think they would
domestic
be
French
smart. Yeah.
Masters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would. I think they for sure have to do masters, and that's the French Federation will push them heavily at that event. We saw it this year. They push who they want, and they really go full force with it, and they kind of
Mhm.
knock others down.
If
So I
anyone's ever
think
looked at these protocols from these domestic French competitions, all the scores are eerily similar.
yes, yes, and I mean the team that ended up the second team that ended up going to Worlds this year, they were dumped so bad at this competition at the beginning of the season,
I
and it
know.
was it was consistent across the board. It wasn't that one or two judges; it was everybody. So I expect to see nines. I expect to see plus four, plus five. I expect to see the coronation begin at this event.
Yep.
It was
Same.
it was this event that really, not for any bad reason, because it was an amazing program, but the Mozart program, this is where this program from Masters got put on the internet, and everyone was like, this is a world championship winning program. And sure
I
enough,
don't
by
know
the end of the
how it missed
season,
me. I didn't
oh,
see
really?
until Cup
Yeah,
of
yeah.
China, and I remember just sitting in bed watching Guillaume Cizeron's and sorry, and Papadakis' Mozart, and I'm just like, I just started crying. I just started crying. Like it's the first time an ice dance program in years had affected me like that. Yeah, I doubt
I'm,
he's gonna recreate that magic, but yeah,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that with his legacy and the way he is, I think that he's not going to accept anything except for something really mind-blowing. And
yeah.
I'm
But I,
sure
I
they're
definitely think that, yeah. When it comes to them, though, do you feel like he's driving the car here? You know, this is like his journey. Because I just think about the positions they're in. We've already talked about how he has all the success, the name
Mhm.
recognition, the Fed backing is purely because of him, and how in the past he was choreographing for Fournier-Beaudry, designing their costumes. So creatively, he's already the one taking charge
Well,
just in their
he
past
he
relationship.
also he choreographed Loper Brissot's free dance this year
Oh, he
too.
did?
Yes.
Oh. And he
Yes.
knew he was coming back. Oh,
Yeah.
this feels so gorgeous.
Roca and Sir. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot
sorry.
of layers there, right? So
Oh,
um so yeah, there's that. Um I we're talking about all the positives with them. I think Laurence in her partnership, she was the one that was much stronger than her partner
oh,
as well.
definitely.
So I'm not Gabriella was fantastic. It wasn't that Guillaume was better than her or whatever, but I think you're taking two really, really good skaters and combining them, and I think there's big potential there. The thing that I talked about with the Shibutanis is they have the benefit of always having skated together. They don't need to relearn each other's
Right.
kind of quirks or their technique. With this team, they're basically learning from scratch, which isn't always the worst thing. A good skater is going to be able to acclimate pretty quickly, and I think they will be able to.
Are there any clips of them skating together, I think? Like just short ones on social
Yeah,
media,
like
right? Just
news clips.
random,
Yeah,
nothing like long or
yeah,
extended. So we don't
yeah.
really even have kind of like a 10-second,
Right,
15-second kind of peak. Okay.
right.
Because one of those things about Papadakis and Cizeron that worked so well was that he has shorter legs than most people. For a tall man, he has a very big, long
Mm,
torso, but
mm,
shorter legs. And so
mhm,
his leg lines and the waist level always matched with Papadakis, even if she was a lot shorter. And
mhm.
so I wonder, like, how that's going to work with Fournier-Beaudry because she seems pretty tall.
She has long legs. Yeah.
And she has long legs. I'm like, is her hip line at the same or higher than
Mhm,
his? Like, oh no, like that's what I worry about, and then how that looks aesthetically. Because when you're pairing up teams, this stuff really matters, and
mhm.
it's just the fact that like, oh, here's two top level skaters, let's just push them together for something. That's not going to happen at the lower levels. So I'm just really curious to see how that works out. I really want to clip.
I think the
God,
most
I'm
we're
very
going to
eager.
get until Masters, even if they skate at Masters, I think they're going to be very tight-lipped about it, everything. I
Yeah.
know
Oh,
IM
and
usually does the big promotion of all the programs in the beginning of the season, but I wouldn't be
mm,
surprised if these ones are not part of that because they want it to be really
they
kind of a
might go back to
surprise.
old school veil of secrecy about everything, pretend
Yeah,
like the internet doesn't exist and
yeah,
resist it.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't. But then again, they might have their programs all over the internet.
Oh.
I don't know.
Ooh, but this is the
So
one that's okay. Go, you good.
yeah, no. So I think again they have to build their credibility. I think France already has established them as they're the best ever before even seeing them skate, which is one
Sigh
thing.
so hard.
Um, and in La Rover Brousseau, I mean, I would be. I talked about this during World Team Trophy, I think, but Monial Lavanchi were a team in the 90s that were on the world podium, I think, twice, 94 and 95. Had an injury that kind of set them back, but then they come back for 98 Olympics with Anastasia and Pesara as the clear number one by this point, and Monia Lavanchi are now outside the top 10 at Worlds, which is really kind of unheard for a world silver medalist coming back so shortly after injury. So I am curious to see if we see a downwards trend even further in Loper So I really hope not, because you and I both, I think, agree that they're one of the most interesting, most creative teams.
Hmm.
They have a huge backing, a huge
The
uh
fandom, yeah.
yeah, and he reached out to me during Worlds for every single thing, and he was asking me if he could share my practice videos and the exhibition video. And I'm like, yes, please take everything. They're very good about catering to their fans and making sure the fans are in the loop of everything. I think the fans are going to be very vocal if we start to see this downward trend for no reason of their own.
Yeah. And
Um,
honestly, my bet is we will, because we already
mhm,
did. And
yeah,
if we're going to talk about some later examples, but if it
yeah.
matches some other trends, we will. We'll see them. Yeah.
So let's talk about the reaction all over the internet from this new
Yeah,
team.
this is the one that's it feels regional depending on where you are as
Yeah,
a fandom, what your reaction was, and
yeah,
for obvious reasons. But
yeah. So North American fans seem very, very, very against this, and they have their opinions about Laurence and this former partnership with Nikolai.
I know. And
Um,
yeah, and and I'm one of them. I know my first reaction was very negative. I literally was just like, "Bleh." I remember sending you or someone else just some kind of vomit emojis, like just stuff like that. Because I had that. I was just like, really? Are you guys tone deaf? Are you not paying
mhm,
attention? Like.
mhm,
But then I remember at Worlds, we asked one of our friends who's European and other friends too about what's your opinion on this?
mhm,
And they're just so neutral about it. It's more curiosity. It's more just like, okay, it's like we don't know everything. They're not taking these little tidbits and facts and just running with them and just projecting them out into whatever preconceived or whatever bias we have. Whereas like I was doing that, I know other North American fans were doing that. And so that was interesting, right? And then you see like kind of this other fandom like in Asia who's really excited because they love Guillaume, right? And my bet is it's going to be very like Radford and Cypre, where sorry, no, Radford and James and Radford, bleh, names, James and Radford, where they start getting invited to shows, all these Asian like
mhm.
shows in Asia want to invite them over. I see them doing that with Guillaume, no matter who he skates with or whom.
I think I think the North American way, at least on the internet these days with the younger generations, is to just be very social justice warrior about every last thing, and everyone has to share the same opinion that you have, and if someone did something wrong, then you have to automatically just have nothing to do with them and make sure everybody else feels the same. We see it
Right.
quite a bit. I don't think that trickles into Asian or specifically Japanese culture nearly as much, and I don't think it's really I think the Europeans just simply don't care. I'm
No,
not saying that's true of everybody, but I think that it's just
they
a
really
very
don't.
different type of landscape as far as the internet goes.
Because I think
Um,
for them, they see the distinction. They're like, he's not coming back, she is. And
right,
that's
right.
different. And then, and I see this too. And I just think about life and the thing I say. And if I'm going to preach, or if I'm going to practice what I preach, I always tell folks, you never get perfect choices. You're always making imperfect choices, right? And then people will always judge you for the choices you make or decisions you make without seeing the choices you had. And now here I am doing the same thing, and I'm trying to just not, but I still feel negative about this team up, honestly. Like I don't know if I can get past that. Like I'm trying to find a way to just enjoy it for what it is, but that, and then I'm feeling myself caught up in the emotions of being a Loporeva and Briseau Uber, So, and feeling that. And if it's these folks who don't like that Shibutani is coming back because you're a Green and Parsons fan, I get that because I'm a Loporeva and Briseau fan. Yeah, I was really heartbroken at Worlds.
I
Really
think
sad.
I'm just so I don't I'm someone that's not very wrapped up in what's happening off the ice.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really truly kind of just try to look at the skating.
And you should, right.
I can't stand what Alexei Yagudin is doing lately. A few years ago, he and I got into it really bad on Instagram because he's making fun of a little kid that was in the same outfit and skated basically a tribute program to him, and he's making fun of the kid on social media, basically saying like, oh, when you buy like basically in America, it would be saying
Roll
like, "Oh,
eyes.
when you get the AliExpress version of me." That's basically what he posted. So I wrote back to him and I'm just like, this kid is like 10 years old. He's obviously looking up to you as a role model and you're making fun of him. And he went off on me basically saying that I don't understand the joke. It's just his humor, blah blah blah. Anyways,
No.
he ended up blocking me, but then he completely changed the caption on the post because I think he realized it was so negative. So it's like
Right.
whatever. But anyways, all the things he said in the past and all this, and I still can go back and respect his programs that he had because some of them I think were so good. So I really I don't know what it is about me, but I can really
No,
separate
and that's good.
the off-ice
I
behavior
think
from what I see
that's
on the ice.
I think that's good. Like honestly, because if you're talking about a sport, that's how you should. If you're judging a sport, you're judging it as a sport,
Right.
not what happens outside of that competition space.
Right.
So, I get that. But anyway, I wanted to circle back. There's so much irony in Alexei Yagudin saying that, not realizing that present day Alexei Yagudin is the AliExpress version of Alexei Yagudin.
Well,
So I'm like,
well,
oh wow, no
well.
irony or self-awareness there from
Uh,
him.
uh, I don't know. I mean,
Great.
I don't see what he posts anymore because he blocked me. Now I can't see anything.
And I
But
just choose not to look.
yeah. So that is what it is. Okay, let's go in now to some of the other comebacks we've seen throughout
Oh
history, especially
yeah.
in the ice dance. The first one that comes to mind for me, if we're going chronologically, would be Torval and Dean coming back,
Yep.
much like Brian Boitano did. The ISU reopened reinstatement for the '94 Olympics, and we saw a handful of skaters come back, Torval and Dean among them. Having won the gold medal at the '84 Olympics 10 years prior, they kept up with skating the entire time. They were doing
Good.
shows, they were competing World Pro Championships, Challenge of Champions, some of those more prestigious pro events back then. They were always pushing creativity, coming up with some
Great.
really, really standout programs, even in pros. So it's not that they lost it's not that
Yeah,
they really
I
had anything. They come back and it was easy for them to come back because they didn't really lose any training time is what
right.
I guess I'm getting
And
at.
domestically, there was really no ice dance competition in Great Britain, so it was just the spot was there and it was theirs. And they were really successful. I know not as successful as they wanted to be or the fans wanted them to be. But a silver at Euros, with bronze at Olympics, even if it's controversial.
Yeah, questionable
I don't think
choreography.
it is though.
Remember the like
Right.
that I remember, I was 7 years old during Lillehammer, right? And I still remember watching the dance event, and I remember them having this whole piece on Grishuk and Platov being separated for too long. And there was a timer on the screen that was showing I think it was 10 seconds that you're not allowed to be apart or whatever. And they have this timer. And I remember going to like a chain department store with my mom a few days later, and I remember the people in front of us in line were saying, "Oh, the Russian team, blah blah blah. They were apart too long." And then we're talking about some of the choreography that Torval and Dean had, and is one of their lifts acceptable or all of this stuff. And
Or what counts as a lift,
yeah,
right? Because they
exactly.
were
Yeah,
doing what we would call today assisted jumps,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there was no definition for a differentiation. Yeah.
yeah. So they came back and like you said, being Olympic gold medals, maybe the most famous free dance of all time.
Mhm.
Um,
I
not the
think
result they wanted,
this
but they came
right.
back very successfully in the one
Yeah.
year that they were back. And they
And I
didn't
think
really they
go ahead.
weren't competing the entire season. It
No,
wasn't like they
just
were
Euros, right? Just
I
Euros and then
believe so.
Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was just the sport had changed a lot in that 10 years. Even if it's ice dance, it was still kind of this level of very free, in the free
Mhm.
dance.
Yeah.
The sport had changed. There's so much more speed. Like what they were known for was this complexity, precision, and almost kind of like point of view. But other teams started adapting this idea of, oh, programs should have a point of view, should have a style. We should have kind of like choreographic themes and motifs throughout our program. So like other teams were doing this. They
Right.
they they started this momentum, this complication, this style and whatever, and this complexity, and it got picked up. So the competition was better. Other teams were skating a lot faster, and you see the Grishik and Platov were the ones that walked away with the gold because they were just by and far an insanely fast team. And
Mhm.
so when you have all these teams with questionable rule breaking in a field where so few things actually have solid definitions in the rules at the time, I don't know. To me, it's not controversial, but I was like you in elementary school at the time. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
still remember so much of that like it was yesterday. It's crazy. Um, the next the next team, I think, going chronologically, well, actually there's two teams, 2005, 2006, when the pro scene was just gone. So it wasn't a case of
yeah.
eligible versus ineligible. There was no pro competitions
And
really
there was
anymore.
no Olympic structure that or
Right.
rule change like the
Right.
ISU that allowed these teams to
Right.
come back. They just
They
did.
just were there. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So Drobiazko Vanagas, who were third at Worlds in 2000, had the very controversial fourth place at Worlds in 2002 when
Too.
almost every other team signed this the
Petition.
petition against the Israeli team, who suddenly jumped up to third place, and they went out on a
And
really sour note as the fourth place, and then they ended up retiring. They ended up doing a lot of shows in Russia. I think they had their own touring
yeah,
show during that time. So they come back in 2005, 2006. They did not do the Grand Prix that year. They did Senior B, like maybe Zagreb or one of those competitions.
yeah.
Um, they won a medal at Europeans, the bronze medal, and then I think they were like tenths of a point away from a medal at
At Worlds.
Worlds. It
Yeah,
was
they were
it
very
was
close.
close. Um,
Mhm.
but once again, that was a one and done, and then they're off to being pros again. And then we also,
And I think too the significance was they competed under 6.0 and came back under
right. Oh yeah,
Code of Points,
absolutely.
now
Yeah,
IJS.
yeah.
And so they actually had to like do things
Learn a
like
whole new system.
twizzles, learn a
Yeah,
whole new
yeah,
system.
yeah.
Lifts had to like have these features and they were never used to that. And they adapted so well. That speed they had as competitors, somehow it felt like when they came back, they got even faster. I I felt like an improvement on their skating, and that was a surprise to me. I remember
I
thinking
think
that at
her
the time.
especially, yeah, her
Yes.
especially,
Hmm.
I think she came back a much better. I saw their
Like
shortcomings
show
when they
skating and
were,
tour skating really
yeah, yeah,
improved her
yeah,
posture, her toe point, leg line, all of it.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
100% agree. Um, Poli Margalio also came back that
Oh,
season, and
but
they came back for the Olympics and the Olympics only. This was not a case of technical minimums.
right.
They just came back. They were not at Europeans. They were not at anything else. Um,
And they were with Natalia Linichuk, and I remember reading, and I remember reading this afterwards, where apparently she guaranteed them the gold medal. And that's
well,
how she can help convince them to come back and to have her. And I'm like, why would you ever do that?
yeah,
And especially, seeing them, they were surprised first after the compulsory dance. And
that's.
everyone's just like, what the heck? And I never even watched it because I think I missed the airing. And that was back in the
Mhm,
day when you just could not go back and rewatch something.
mhm.
Um, but then, like, I remember watching the original dance and being like, they were first after the compulsory? Because we all talk about the fall, right? Then
Right.
the
Yeah.
stare scene around
Yeah.
the world, or whatever you want to call it. But that original dance was terrible. That was skated so poorly up until that
Yeah.
lift. They were
Yeah.
already looking, it lost out on the top spot. There was no way
Yeah.
they were in
Yeah.
competition for gold after that original dance, even without a fall. That's my opinion.
No, I don't
Terrible.
disagree. But I mean,
Skating was
but
awful.
listen, like you have, and nothing against them, but you have Grishina Goncharov who end up with the bronze medal at this event. I don't think it's that out of the
No, they
place
could have
to say
medaled. They
that.
could have
Yeah.
medaled.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
easily
Yeah.
could have got that
Yeah.
bronze medal. Their skating was probably still better than Grishina and Goncharov's.
Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah.
not hard.
And But in this case, so Drobiazko Vanagas had no competition in Lithuania. They weren't displacing anyone. As far as Italy goes, we're bringing back Massimo Scali because he and Federica Faella were the Italian champions for at least probably 4 years. I mean, all 4 years that after
Yeah.
Fusarpoli and Margalio were gone. So they were building themselves up. They weren't really a top team yet. So it wasn't that they were displaced. And if you look at their trajectory, once Fusarpoli and Margalio were out of the picture again after this Olympics, um, Faella and
It's up.
Scali have a world bronze medal. They have several Euro medals. Probably should have won in 2010.
Oh,
Um,
100% should have won.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So, but I mean, their career didn't really get derailed by this, and this was literally a one and done event
Mhm.
for the Italians at home. And we're talking about career trajectories after this. I This is a case of where it really did not affect the other team. All right,
Yep.
moving on to 2010, you have Delabelle Schoenfelder, who were on track really to probably be Olympic favorites
Yeah.
as of 2008.
Yeah,
Um,
'cause they won worlds.
yeah, they
And I
won
remember
worlds,
and they were that team who was always just almost. They were like the fourth placers, the fifth
tenth
placers,
of a
always.
point.
They
Yeah,
were
always.
the
Yeah,
Mikhail Brzezinas of ice dance, like for the
yeah.
longest time, where it's just always like that. And so them winning without even getting, a bronze or silver first, like I loved it. Like I was fans of theirs for so long. I even loved that Wizard or Merlin program of theirs
Oh,
that
Merlin,
everyone
I
thought was
loved
stupid. Oh,
2004.
really? Oh, I loved
2004.
it.
I love that
Yeah.
program.
Should have
Yeah.
won at World. Should have won a medal at Worlds. Whatever. Even with his broken hand. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, and so like I remember that being really disappointed because when they came back that fall season, they were just winning everything, and that Pink Floyd program was brilliant, probably the
Hmm.
best free dance they've ever
Hmm.
had. And even in the same year of Virtue and Moore also having a Pink
Hmm.
Floyd free dance, it was better. It was just so much better. Virtue and Moore were just skating Marina Zueva doing Pink Floyd, which is going to be what it is. And so yeah, I
Mothballs.
was yeah, mothballs. It's gonna be mothballs, right? No, for real. And so yeah, and then seeing them come back at Worlds, or sorry, at the Olympics, they just weren't the same team. They
No,
probably
not
would
at
if they were
all.
skating at the same level as they were in 2008 and just improving, improving. I could have seen them walking away with gold in 2010, even against Virtue and Mar and
I
Melee.
think so too. I mean, it would have been close for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It definitely more of a competition that one ended up being. And I even, as a huge De La Belle and Schoenfelder fan, I think that even the sixth place they got in the
It's
Olympics was
generous.
generous.
It was
Absolutely,
very,
yeah.
yeah. Because
Um,
and when we talk about blunting a team's momentum, Pesce and Borzov were fifth at the previous Worlds.
right.
They probably should have placed higher at the Olympics too.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
yeah,
that's
you
another
could see
case of
that.
France, though.
Hmm.
That's France. So again, we're going back to the same country where it's almost like whatever they want. If the agenda is pushed, and that's what ends up happening. And then,
And I always feel like Pesce and Borzov were that team that always got the short end of some stick. They had a lot of bad luck when it came to stuff
oh my
like
God,
this.
Worlds losing by 600ths of a point or whatever.
Oh yeah, that
Six
whole
hundredths of a
podium
point
being so
between first and
close.
third. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
essentially it's a three-way tie, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
in reality, Ilyunik and Ketsalapov should have won that competition. I still honestly think they should have won the competition, even with the
Even with
big
the
zero
yeah,
in the short dance.
yeah.
100%. Anyway.
Okay, so the final big one that we have is a huge one, obviously, but Virtue and Moyer come back 20
Mhm.
fall of 2016.
And this is the most
Um,
relevant, I feel like. Of
yeah.
everything going on now, this one is the most relevant. Mhm.
Yeah, so they're out for basically 3 seasons. I mean, they're out for 3 seasons. Not, I mean, they went their separate ways, very much like Shibutanis. They kind of had these other things going on
Yeah.
outside of the rink. They weren't tremendously, as far as I know. It wasn't a lot of show skating in that time. I might be wrong, but I just don't remember them showing up in a lot of tours or anything, if any. Um, Come back and
And they announced right before
yeah,
2016 Worlds. And
yeah,
then they were at 2016 Worlds doing interviews with all the
yeah,
press
yeah.
and taking all the attention away from what was supposed to be a team that was a favorite for the gold
Right,
because they
yeah.
were undefeated
And I'm
that
sure they were
whole
staring them
season.
down during the skate, just like Katarina Witt
Hmm.
used to do, just like staring, like, here we are. So, but if you look at so they come back and almost immediately, I mean, they're meeting up with the world champions at NHK, I think it was.
Yeah.
and we see where that was
It was
going from the
close.
start. Yeah,
It
but we
was really
see,
close. Yeah,
yeah,
you could see that to where it was all just kind of like that first competition. It felt like a coin flip when they met who
hmm
was going to win,
hmm
but then they pulled away.
hmm
hmm And it was weird to see that, whereas the judges when they came back, and I'll be curious to see if there's the same level of hesitation
hmm
that Virtue and Mara just kind of blew past and was just like,
right,
no, please stop
right,
hesitating, because they
yeah,
lost the free dance to Chalk and Bates at Skate Canada.
yeah,
In Skate Canada. I'm not sure
yeah,
if folks remember
okay,
that. And so I'm wondering if the judges will have kind of a similar hesitation with Shibutanis and whatever. But Virtue and Mar was skating so well. I
hmm
think too, when they came back and they came back under IAM, they changed the way they skated.
right,
They stopped overly complicating programs. They stopped doing all this unnecessary choreography all the time. Their skating was a lot more open too. Folks don't
hmm
like to talk about it, but
hmm
the Virtue and Mar that came back skated vastly easier programs than the Virtue and Mar that first retired.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but like it was just by and away just so good. Like, and so I'm wondering if the Shibutanis can show us something like that. I'd like to think they can and will, but we'll see.
Well, talking about Virtual Warrior 2, so you see in the Olympic season, it was really
Oh
kind
yeah.
of a close battle,
hmm
kind of trading off with Papadakis, Cizeron. Now we go to the Olympics, and I remember you and I kind of got into a little something during the
Oh, did we?
Olympics.
I don't even
And
remember,
yeah,
honestly.
in
Okay.
the short dance, because it is no fault of our own what happened with
Yeah,
the dress. It is
it's
not,
not.
this is a fluke. You cannot hand out 10.0s for this program. I'm
No, you
sorry.
cannot. The judging
And
was
they
terrible.
did. They did.
And
And the
and
thing
and some
is,
judges gave +3 max GOE for those twizzles that were totally off
right.
timed. He should have got a level 3 because he definitely did not have clean turns. One of them
Yeah.
was checked, but whatever.
So, but just looking at that, and it's a sympathy for sure, and it's what they
Yeah.
potentially could have. But that whole last 30 seconds or whatever you want to consider of that program was so tense, and they were holding on for dear life, literally. And to
She
give
even
tens
missed the
for
timing on the
yeah,
lift.
yeah. So.
That she's hit all season. Like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Anyway,
So, but then, the thing is, I'm going into the free dance and I'm watching this live, and I don't even know if the technical score box was on the screen at that point. I think it was, but I'm in my head, I'm like, no, I watched and I'm like, Virtual Moria did enough. Like, there is no way
yeah,
that they can't give high enough scores. And I remember you were like, whatever. But I 100% was like, Virtual Moria won this competition fair and square. And we go back to this short dance and we know that it's not, it's just a fluke.
yeah.
It's the worst timing ever. But it's again another situation. This is an Olympic gold medalist team. Shibutanis are an Olympic bronze medalist team, but they're at a very high level, and I think that people get this in their head. Oh, it's been 7 years, blah blah blah. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's been 1 year or 7 years. And I'm going to jump ahead to something we were probably going to talk about at the end. But you look at Alyssa Liu, and I understand this is single skating. She for 3 years wanted nothing to do with skating really. I remember she did an interview. I think it was maybe right before Worlds or maybe after. I don't remember. But she said, the only time I ever stepped foot in the rink in those 3 years is because I was going to a concert and I needed somewhere to throw my bag. So I used the locker in the ice rink. That is the only time I stepped in the rink. And then we see other stories where she said, oh, I got bored one day and I went back skating. And by the end of the session, I was doing my triples. It doesn't matter if it's been 1 year or 10 years or
It's
whatever. Your
nuts.
your muscle memory is going to come back, and it's not going to take as long as most people think. I think people that have never skated, whatever. I think about piano, for example, and I was really deeply involved in piano when I was all throughout middle school and high school, and I had this really hard piece that I played for my senior recital, and I can go back. It's been over 20 years now since I graduated high school, and I don't play this. I don't sit and play the piano. I don't practice like I used to. I don't really play at all. But I can go back, and the first time I play that piece from 21 years ago, it might not be perfect. It's a little bit rough, but you just give me a week or two or whatever, and by the end of that, I promise you it's going to be back to where it was. You can attribute this to skating as well. You have a team like the Shibutanis who were always technicians. It might take them some time to get back to that level, but it's not like the 7 years. It doesn't matter if it's been 1 year or 7 years or 2 weeks. Some people go on vacation for 2 weeks and they lose all their triples and they have to go back to like the drawing board to like get it back. They will get back to a very high level, I think. And
I agree.
I don't think that I don't care about the 7 years. I really don't think that's a hindrance at all. Just side note going into that. But so what
My
does this
bet
mean?
is,
Tell me.
honestly, my bet is they're already at a really high
Yeah, I
level
think so. I
right
think so.
now. I don't think they don't seem to me like people who are big risk takers. They seem to me like risk averse people So
Uh,
everything
uh,
they do is intentional, and they're not making an announcement
listen,
until
for eight
they
months,
know they're
listen,
already
exactly.
competition ready. Right.
They're not the type of team. I don't think anybody's going to come back, have at least 8 months of training time, and then make this announcement if things aren't going to plan and they don't
Hmm.
feel like they actually are going to be at a high
Right.
level. Even for Cizeron, he has a legacy and his personality. I don't think that he would go for this if he didn't strongly feel that they can get up to the top or near the top again. So I think Shibutani's the same for them. They seem like they're perfectionists. They seem like they're very hardworking, and I think that they saw how this was going for however long they've been on the ice. It might be even longer than what I heard. I heard in October it could have been a lot longer than that.
Right.
I
Hmm.
think they're at a level where they feel like they're good and in contention. So what does it all mean for next season? Olympic
Oh yeah,
shakeup, yes.
yes.
But again, we talked at I think the
Even team
biggest,
event.
well, that too. So you now have France, who's I was doing the math and we talked about how Georgia potentially is a favorite for the bronze medal. I think Italy's probably comfortably into the final. And then if you take the US and Japan, that's four teams. And then the fifth team getting into the final, I would say is probably between Canada and France. And now if you have Cizeron coming back with Fournier-Beaudry and shaking things up to the point that they could be first or second ahead of the Canadians in the rhythm dance, they have a chance with their men. If Adam does the short and he skates really well and he's in the top two or three, and you have Canadian men doing whatever they usually do, there's a high chance, even
Right.
with the lack of a really strong. The thing that the pairs have going for them, I would say, with the Kovalevs, who are most likely going to be the Olympic team for France, is I don't think there's going to be a full field of 10 pairs teams.
Yeah.
I think some of the countries that get in will not. Korea, for sure, does not have a pairs team. So now you're getting 2 points at the lowest instead of one, even if they finish last place. So I think that we might see that there's more than one team that doesn't have a pairs.
And
Anyways,
I,
but
yeah, I think a lot of it will
so
depend on basically how well the Canadian men do. I think it all
yeah,
hinges
it's
on
all it's
that.
all hinges on
If
that. Yeah,
if good Roman shows up, the Canadians are in the final. If it's
yeah,
Roman from the last Olympics, and again, that wasn't his fault. It was a surprise. He was
yeah,
never supposed to do the team event.
yeah,
It's France. That's
yeah.
where I would put it.
But aside from the team, it was assumed for a long time that it was Chalking Bates and Gillis and Poirier that are fighting for a top two, and then we have this hope that it was Guignard and Fabry that were in bronze. They've lost a lot of
Hmm.
momentum this year, and we even talked at Worlds or World Team Trophy how they might slip down even further now that they have this crack and they're off the podium. You have two
Hmm.
new teams coming in. I'm really worried that this is a team that's maybe resorted to fifth or sixth place now. I really truly am worried that
Guinard and
unless,
Fabry, I
oh
agree. I think
yeah,
so. No, I think that's what we're expecting because seeing how Fear and Gibson, you get these
yeah,
opposite teams. One's all
yeah,
technicians, no vibes.
hmm
One is all
hmm
vibes.
hmm
Vibes one out.
hmm
And if I'm thinking about the rhythm dance, how there's so many vibes based elements now.
no.
Yeah, it really doesn't bode well for a team like Gwinnett and Fabry, and I would expect to see, honestly, one of probably the Shibutanis overtake them. I see the
hmm
Shibutanis overtaking a team like Gwinnett and Fabry and Fear and Gibson. I just don't know if they break into the top two for sure. I could see them already, not even seeing them skating, thinking of that their level when they left out at. They're easily bronze medal team right now, if not fighting for second and first. But again, we haven't seen anything. We'll
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Just knowing
if they're
what they did in the
skating
past. Yeah.
even 80% at that 2018 level is
Mhm.
easily bronze at last Worlds.
And then, we talked about how the US can't really figure out a second
Right.
place dance team domestically. It's Carrera and Ponomarenko have distanced themselves as clear
And this
number
should
two.
force them to decide one, really. It feels
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. But
And
now is it gonna push them down to third? So what you're saying is,
yes.
Shibutanis are potentially a medal threat. So Carrera
Yeah,
Ponomarenko, you think are the clear top, the third place?
I mean think about all the weaknesses that you criticize Ponomarenko for.
Hmm.
Shibutanis have none of those.
Right.
They do everything better.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to put Career Ponomarenko down. I love them.
Mhm.
Shibutanis do everything better. They
Right.
were doing everything better back in 2014. Like
2011 when
seriously,
they were on the world podium. Yeah.
2011 when they won that
Yeah.
surprise bronze.
Yeah.
No, truly,
Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
they were that good. It was
Yeah.
always just the style and packaging thing. And yeah, to me, it's an easy silver. They're in that second place spot, even if they're at like 60% of where they were at in 2018. So it really is that third spot in the bronze position, and that's to where the competition is. And I feel like does USFS continue this whole domestic, well, let whatever, you're not our number three, or does it really solidify that they are the top of this
Yeah.
group?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll
I don't
see.
know either.
I
Yeah.
I I would I think it does though, and especially when you think of body of work, and if you're considering that, Korean Ponomarenko have it locked up, considering body of
Yeah.
work too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess my question with this is if Carrera and Ponomarenko become the clear number three, which is what we
yeah.
both probably see coming, are they going to tank in the scores, or is the ISU going to allow
That'll
for
be
three US teams to be in the top six or seven?
that'll be interesting because that's what it was like in that 2018, 2017, 18
Right. Well,
cycle where
yeah.
you basically had three equivalent teams that were
Yeah.
more or less just scoring similarly, and it was always who was skating cleaner in the competition that won,
Hmm.
right? And that kind of played out all season. And with the kind of subtext of, well, Hubble and Donahue have made a mistake at every single
Yeah.
competition and always lost out to one of these
Yeah.
teams, but always tended to beat one when they met.
Hmm.
So like there was that backdrop too, right? And so with this, you don't have that. And it's not like they're fighting for a top team. They're fighting for what, like 4 to 6 at Worlds, really, at the end of the day. I don't know. I don't think Green and Parsons or Zingis and Kolesnik, and I'm not even sure if Kolesnik can even go to the Olympics
I think he's on track. I
on
read that
track
he's been
if
in the
things don't
US
get delayed.
for, yeah, like he should have
Okay.
enough time. And I remember I interviewed Carrera and Ponomarenko in the fall of 2018 when they were just starting to show up on the senior level, and she had mentioned that this was when they were really starting to get the ball rolling, and she was letting her team deal with it, and they don't really talk, she wasn't as involved in the process. So I would assume because it's been 7 years for her that she should be on track as well. I know it always seems like it's last minute. It was with Belvin and Augusto. I think it was with some other teams where it's kind of this last minute early on, and a few months before the Olympics is when they get it. I don't see any reason why not, even with the current political situation that there is. I think that both teams will be eligible. I just don't. Carrera Ponomarenko, yes, probably will be that team. I just question, Green Parsons were once ahead of them, and can they
Right.
bring that back? And I think the battle's right there. I really think it's
I agree.
between those two. And that's it. What the USFS decides is a different story. But
And that'll be interesting to see because domestically, teams like Zingis and Kolesnik are way closer
hmm
to teams like Green and Parsons and Carrera and Ponomarenko than they are internationally.
hmm
And to me, the international judging is more accurate because their programs are just vastly simpler. They
hmm
just like no transitions in choreography, you know?
hmm
So like I would like to think, and that is my prediction, is that things really do solidify. It really is those three outside of Chalk and Bates, Shibutanis, and then everyone else just kind of stays now in the group. There was a lot of flux of who's kind of in this second tier group in the US. But I think now teams like the Browns are now down, right? I don't see
hmm
them overtaking Zingas
yeah, yeah.
Kolesnik even anymore. And then really that's it, right? Because the other team I was like really big fan of,
Friday in Somerville.
like broke up. Yeah, Brady and Somerville, their just momentum is just gone. And then even too, I was really a fan of Isabel Flores and whatever partner she was skating with, but even then now that's gone too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I feel like the hierarchy's there, the order is there. I don't
hmm
see it changing
Yeah.
unless Green and Parsons have a great program and Carrera Ponomarenko have not.
Trash. Yeah.
Trash,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the
So,
club for them, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
Basic bottom line, like I said, we obviously I'm seeing a lot on the internet of a very strong, this is what's going to happen. And this happens consistently
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
all of skating. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think we're just objectively saying this is the level that the Shibutanis were on. I use the piano example, and I use the Alyssa example, and I use some of these other examples. It doesn't take all that long. And again, I'm going to bring up Alyona Sevchenko. I'm sure right now she could pick any random partner and probably be in contention for an Olympic medal by the time February comes around, just because,
Really, honestly, I know.
But it's not even the landscape of Paris has stepped it up a lot in the last few years. It's just that she
She's
she
out
has it.
Yona Sevchenko. That's why,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I
And the
wonder if
Shibutanis,
Guy. Shibutanis, right?
Yeah,
They already had
yeah,
that success, and I
yeah.
wonder if Guillaume will have this level of kind of like force and
Hmm.
influence
Hmm.
on Fournier-Beaudry. And she's starting at a higher level than Bruno did. Bruno started at
Yeah.
really kind
Oh
of
yeah. Bruno was like a
junior,
top, barely
terribly,
top 10 European. Um,
and his posture
yeah.
never got good. They just kind of stopped caring
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But even then, what was it? First season they got bronze.
Third at Worlds, yeah.
Yeah, so
With a
it's
terrible free skate. I hate I hate that music so much. That is one of my least favorite programs of all time. Such a side note, but I really did not. You have okay, so you have that's the year that Sui and Han had that flamenco short
oh,
program.
short program that was so good.
That
It was
is my
brilliant.
one of my most absolute favorite programs of
It was
all time.
amazing live,
Um,
gotta say.
yes, but then you have I don't know what that free skate of Savchenko and Maso was. Um, but yeah, so again, we don't know what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are speaking in definitives as in they're coming back and it's going to turn into nothing. And then other people are super worried that Chalk and Bates are going to be displaced for the Olympic gold medal. And I think it's in between. I don't think that they're really in contention to upset what has been established as a very clear boosting of scores for the top team. I don't think that's suddenly going to turn around. I do think that they're going to be in heavy contention for serious like the medals probably.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. And I really hope that Massimo works with them on developing something that really stands them out. And I'm thinking right now as I'm saying this, I'm like, why? I understand Barbara Fusar-Polly has her own choreography and her whatever choices, but why are Guignard and Fabry not using their country mate Massimo for choreography? Why?
Why
I
aren't Yeah,
I
you could ask that of a lot of teams, especially the teams that tend to keep everything in-house, and I wonder if that's by design, because you've seen
yeah.
this, like the teams that do go to Massimo eventually, even like Green and Parsons.
Hmm.
No, no, sorry, that was John Luke Baker, but who was that?
Yeah, they
Tequila and Vrsilius, right? That tango free dance, it just felt like,
Oh, but yeah, you have Maurizio as their coach, so maybe there's a little dynamic there where it's only
oh,
one and not the
okay.
other. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I think
But
it looks like they're good friends. I don't know,
yeah,
but so
but it made me give Tequila and Versilis a second look. I had their whole like really nice where she's kind of like this
hmm
bird program.
hmm
Like that was cool. But after that, I got
yeah,
really bored real quick.
yeah,
The
yeah,
skating just wasn't there to keep drawing me in. This program made me look at them again
yeah,
and made me root for them again.
yeah. So at the end, we have two teams coming back, and I saw a comment that was kind of out of place, but I
Oh.
think a Russian journalist or somebody said that there's potentially another team coming back, but nobody knows
Oh,
who it is.
so they
So,
know, but they're playing coy because it's not
well, I don't
official,
know.
but wants
I
to put
don't
it out
even.
there maybe.
Remember I don't know if you even
Who
remember
could
this,
it
but
be though?
I have no idea, honestly. But I was gonna say, remember in 2009, I don't know if you remember this, but there were rumors that Marina Anasina was coming back with a new partner trying to go
Oh,
to 2010 Olympics.
I remember
Like
that.
we so
Yep.
we've I feel like this happens quite a bit, and whether there's this third team or not, I don't know, but I think that a lot of dance fans this previous season and in the last few years were complaining that everything was very stale and it seemed like the top results were kind of static. And now we have at least this dynamic coming in where things could be a lot more exciting. That final group, that race into the final group now is going to be crazy. There's going to be a team
Right.
that was most likely
Hmm.
amongst the medal favorites that's now out of the top group come the Olympics. At least that's
And
what I see.
I wonder if it's a Russian journalist, there is the
I think it might
unaffiliated
not, I
team
don't
going to the
know.
Olympics. And if you're looking at, I don't even know what the field of Russian ice dance is right now, but if their top team is still, oh my goodness,
Stepanova Bukin,
Stepanova and Bukin, then yeah, I could see a comeback Russian team like, yeah, Ketsalapov coming back for another go if
but
he
could they?
has
I
the
don't think
work
they're.
ethic. Oh, because of the rules for
Yeah, I
qualification.
don't know.
Yeah, that could happen.
I might not have even come from a friend or a Russian journal. I just saw
Oh,
a
okay.
comment somewhere that was like very out of I don't know. I just saw that I'm like, who could it be? It could be no one. It could have been
Yeah.
misinformation, whatever. But uh it's definitely made things more interesting. I think it's making people talk. It's making people have very severe
I'm excited for this
opinions.
season. I
Um,
was really just kind of can't wait for next season to be over, and now I'm like, I can't wait for next season to start.
mhm.
It's really renewed
Even
my
even with those rhythm
interest in.
dances.
Oh, the
Oh,
90s.
you
Oh,
know what? So actually, I
I'm
want
kind of hope.
to.
Oh, good.
Well, so we've been posting these videos, and there's a lot of people that don't know much about ice dance, and we've gone into some of the finer details and some of the things they look at in scoring. I actually got an email from a former U.S. dance champion, and it's basically commending us for talking about some of the things that he feels are also accurate. He was at Worlds and he was saying he was watching the tracker for the beginning teams and they were all scoring, 0 or 1 GOE. Then you get to these final groups and they're throwing out 3 or 4 GOE for elements that are not that good. Um, I just want to go over a few of the things that he said in the email.
Oh, and this will be a surprise to me, everybody. I have not even
Yeah, yeah,
seen
I did. I
this.
just thought about it actually.
Okay.
So one of his first issues is that we have the pattern dance and we have a 60s 70s whatever program that we have as the theme, and then you put the paso doble in as the steps to try to say we're keeping the compulsories in this way, but what correlation? Like it's become like a
And
mockery of
then,
itself,
yeah.
so
hmm
tell me what you think though, so I'm gonna look at what
Oh, I
else.
agree with that. I think about when we had the short dance and the way it was sold to everybody. It's like we're not doing away with the compulsory. We're
Mhm,
now just putting two patterns into the short dance. We're combining the programs. We're having the best of both worlds, right? You get your technical comparison between all the teams, and you get your theme comparison between all the teams. And if you want freedom, you go to the free dance, and that's when the teams can do what they want. But considering what's been happening now, it's almost like, what's the point now of the rhythm dance, right? I keep trying to call it the short dance, the rhythm
yeah.
dance. Like, what's the point of it if there's no longer this technical comparison, this precision team to team that you're looking at, where you're scrutinizing, did you get these few turns or steps right
Hmm.
in the pattern? And I loved
Hmm.
analyzing that. Like, I don't know, like me as
I
a
do
fan, I was,
too, but
yeah. And but then they did away with that, and now it's like, what is it this season? This season they did a someone always has to do one of the required steps. We're not
yeah,
actually going to check it for accuracy, and you can switch who does
yeah, yeah, yeah,
what,
yeah,
and then whatever. And for everything else, just have fun, right? Like
yeah.
I'm not all for that. I really hate that they added the choreographic character step in the rhythm dance, and they're scoring it the way they are. But we've gone over that like a million times. I even with that, yeah, I'm still excited for next season.
So,
But I
so,
hate it.
but a
I hate it.
lot of what
I'm
you
gonna
just
say.
said. So I'm gonna use exact quotes from this email.
Okay.
So, speaking about, compulsory dances being completely removed, not only in
Oh,
this one level, not just from the segment that it used to be to start the competition, but then really being removed from the short dance, rhythm dance, or whatever you want to call it. There was always some kind of component. He said, I'm still horrified that they've been removed from competition. I really feel that the apples to apples comparison is essential in ice dance. Every ice dance coach I know from pre-IJS feels exactly the same. We are the purists and appreciate all the technique involved while still appreciating choreography. I I know that compulsory dances were not everybody's
right.
favorite. Incorporate them into a rhythm dance or a short dance, and
And
there's that.
and here's the thing about that too. So I use Mr. TV AHV, my husband, as my like everyman. And I know the reason they're trying to like make it looser is to make it more appealing to fans, right? But I think 2018, those rhythm dances or short dances at the time were very appealing, and they had the patterns, right? But they only had the
Mhm.
one at the time, I think, and then
Yeah,
they let
I
you
think
do whatever
yeah.
you want for the second.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I asked Mr. TV HVU, right? He can't even tell that every team is doing a section of the same pattern, steps, turns. Could not tell. Has no idea that every team's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So what really have you changed?
Yeah.
The casual fan has noticed no difference.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just doing different
Even the longtime
movements.
fans, we've talked about
Even
this
the
all the time.
longtime
They don't
fans.
even know what they're looking for in ice dance. It's all
So,
about
right.
costumes and attitude and vibes and music
And
and
then, right, all you've done is accept the nerds who sit here and talk about it way too much and spend way too
yeah.
much money and
Yeah.
time on this sport.
Yeah.
That's really all you've done, and you haven't brought anyone in. I feel
Yeah.
like if you, the themes I like, going to like street dances or even decades, fine.
Mhm.
But anyway, I'll let you continue
I
reading
don't,
this.
I know. Oh, okay.
I'm soapboxing. I need to
Yeah.
stop.
No, it's okay. So, I had talked about how he was watching the Jumbotron. He was saying, the first few groups, everything, the scores were basically the same for the elements. You get to the final two groups and the marks jumped, even though he says he didn't notice a big noticeable difference. And he even used Chalk and Bates in his example, saying they had very little speed going into their twizzles, which is typical of them, and they had ridiculously high GOEs. And we've talked about this. This is this is such a glaring element for me at the top of the sport that is done in place basically, and no speed and no ice coverage, and they're scoring what they are. So you have a former US national champion saying the same thing from the US, mind you, like a US national champion saying this. Um, so then and then he goes into the choreographic element. He says, for me, there's a sad irony to this. The whole program should be able to be a choreographic element, right? Because we're looking at the PCS of this, not just one small section. I'd like to see IGS lose some of the requirements for the rhythm dance and free dance to free up time and allow for more overall choreography. That should be judged as part of the whole program. Maybe eliminate a step sequence, etc., which did I not say in the singles programs, get rid of the step sequence and get the time back so that you can really add the choreography in. It's and then he also brings in an interesting point. He wants at least one judge on the panel that comes from an actual dancing background to kind of analyze. But how would this work unless you
You
use
can't
split
talk to each
panels?
other.
You can't talk.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't know the technique, so they're only really looking at PCS. And they tried this split panel. One of the funniest things for me
Okay.
ever in this sport is when they split the panels and they said, okay, you're only going to focus on this or this, and we saw wildly different PCS even when they did that. I mean, there was even more of a separation than what we see now. I feel like now, like we talked about, there's this corridor and they try to stay conservative, so they're all within the same range, or they go up as the competition goes on. But when they did this experiment, I think it was at Nebelhorn in one of these early season competitions, the PCS was all over the place, even when that's the only thing they were focusing on. So I don't think splitting the panels would be good. You can't really bring in a non-skating judge to
Yeah.
judge the PCS and only the PCS because they don't know what they're doing with the other thing. I don't think that necessarily is going to work. Um, and then yeah, that's basically it. He says he misses 6.0. He understands why the system is how it is now because it gives more of a feedback and more of a you can't just say, oh, this is like a 5.6 or a 5.7 program and that's it. And no one really could quantitatively say, okay, this is
I know,
this is
right?
it, you
You're
know?
just yelling and arguing in the ether. There's nothing to really
Yeah,
hold into,
yeah,
where now
yeah.
you have everything you can scrutinize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is better for the
And we
skaters
do.
too, because yeah, we scrutinize we see, but it's also better for the skaters because it's
Yeah.
across the board, even all the way down to 20th place. Even the teams that don't make
And
the free
then
dance, they're such good skaters, and that wasn't always the foundations weren't always there. Even down the ranks, you have the women doing triple toe or at least triple combinations all the way down to the final qualifiers, and it used to be three or four triples might get you into the top 10 at world. So it's definitely like it's
yeah.
very much stepped up from where it once was. And I think that being able to see line by line where your strengths and your weaknesses are and seeing this push by everybody else has really evolved the sport in a great way. But again, we're getting to this point where dance is a shadow of where it once was. And I think again, when we talked about this, and you're really good at the math side of how the balance has kind of shifted from the technical panel
Mhm.
now into the judges' hands because the GOEs are just so outrageous on the choreographic elements and this choreographic element in the rhythm dance that can get teams up to 7.5 additional points. Um, there needs to be a happy medium. There needs to be traces, I
Right.
think, of the compulsories back in the program to a more serious level than what they have now. And again, I agree with the fact that they need to free up time so that there can be glimpses of an actual program. We saw the second Fin team really, really do this well.
Yep.
It's not impossible, but for most teams, like I said, I was sitting in the front row for the practices for the rhythm dance and the free dance, almost the same pattern to every program, more or less. It's like single. It's turned into singles where it's the same program. I would like to see more time freed up where it's just more focusing on the second mark, but at the same time bringing back elements that really showcase the actual skating rather than the theatrical.
Right.
Rah rah, +4, +5 choreographic element. Let the choreographic stuff stay in the second mark and let the elements stay in the first mark, and don't make the choreographic elements not only be how the program is being judged as a whole program, but
Yeah.
also giving you massive GOE. That's my thing.
And when I think about like ice dance programs too, again, I know when we talked about this last time, when the element came out, I was really into the choreographic steps, but it went away really quick.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And when I think about of all the ice dance programs post 2018 with the introduction of this element, I only go back and really love one of them. I rewatched Dune. It's Dune. It's great, but I wouldn't say it's like some brilliant piece of emotional choreography. It's just so cool.
Hmm.
I would put it
Hmm.
that aesthetic.
It's a
Cool.
vibe. It's a
It's a
vibe.
vibe. It's a whole vibe. It's something that's just not here. It's very modern. But when I think about something classic, something I go back and rewatch, it's Sunday Afternoon, Papadakis and Cizeron. Only one.
Hmm.
Only free dance once the choreographic steps got introduced that I still feel like I want to go
Hmm.
back and watch, and it doesn't feel like it's separate from the
Hmm.
program.
Hmm.
It blends in with the music, the way how they exit the lift and just curve into it, and it doesn't start back to front, it starts front to back, and it is
Hmm.
smooth, and there's never a stop-start idea. And the music doesn't just drastically change, it blends in. And so teams aren't doing that.
Hmm.
And I'd rather just have the element go away completely.
Yeah.
It's just not a well judged element, and everything like the criticism of the email that we've been like talking about, this element just showcases all of them. There's no true
Hmm.
way to judge this objectively, so
Hmm.
judges just aren't. They're just
No.
judging based on all these biases and whatever skate
Audience,
order, audience
skate order. Yeah.
reaction, and
Yeah.
even then, it should not purely be right. And I even think back in what was that team that did Sweet Dreams at U.S. Nationals? That's really a fan favorite.
Karina and Joe.
Yeah,
Karina Manta and Joe Johnson.
right, Joe Johnson, right? And I remember they go in that choreographic step. They're just like voguing and vibing. They're just walking straight down. It's not even like they have great extension, great posture, great lines. There's no difficult steps. And what do we see? +5s from all the judges. It's
For
like
a vibe.
it's
I
just
mean,
vibes. It's
I
all
love
vibes.
that
It's all
program. You know,
vibes. Yeah, no, that's what I mean, right? Yeah.
you're gonna take if you're gonna take the cheesiness, then take it to that extreme,
Right.
level.
I'll lean into
Um,
it. Yeah.
but yes, it's just it's like a mockery of what the sport should be. Look at how many programs were just duds at the top level this year. So even with this choreographic
My
stuff that
God,
they
I
think is going to
know.
make these revolutionary moments, it's not. So I again think much like I've been preaching in the singles competition for 2 Olympic cycles at a minimum to get rid of that step sequence in the free skate to free up some time to actually see glimpses of a program. This email that we got and kind of suggesting the same in dance, I think maybe not necessarily an entire serious element that's judged, but all these choreographic elements just make them not worth anything, but find a way to incorporate another element into the program or a list of things that differentiate. It has to be really different types of elements that you have choices to do because if not, everyone's going to still end up doing the same thing. We're going to see the same variation on a slide. We're going to see the same assisted lifts that are really a bunch of nothing. We're going to
Right.
see the same character step that's really, and I've said this before, but as somebody that literally barely had I had a few double jumps when I was skating. If I can go out on the ice after how many years of not skating and do some of these choreographic step, character step sequences after about 5 minutes. Like, what is the point of handing a +5 just because the audience going crazy or the music all of a sudden went from Claire de Lune to now a dance party? Like, it's just it needs to be changed. And
Yeah.
it's we have the Olympics, and then typically historically they do this Congress after in the summer after the Olympics, and big changes may or may not be made. Um, I hope.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we're so far into past what ice dance used to be. I don't think there's any turning back anytime soon. Um,
I hope that's not the case. I don't know what they do if they even like use any type of like data or focus groups or surveys. I doubt they do.
no,
I'm my bet is it's a bunch of folks decades older than us trying to think, what do kids, a decade younger than us think
I'm
about and
100%
like?
sure based on
Let's
what
go ask
they're
my kids.
no, it's all about what's going to make this big moment on TikTok
Right.
or
Oh
Instagram.
God.
It's
Otherwise.
that's 100% what they're geared towards now. The social media that the ISU has is really not great in my opinion. Um, I feel like they're just very disconnected from what it is. I don't. If we go back to the more technical side of the sport, I think there's going to be a lot of people that don't understand it. But let's be real, as we've repeated 1,000 times, the longtime fans of the sport still know nothing about ice dance. So who really cares if you go back to a more technically based thing? If you free up some of that time to still sell a program, then you still have these viral moments. You still have these things that the people that know nothing about technique can say, "Oh, I really like that program," or whatever. That's just how I feel. I'm trying to push to try to get into the ISU in some capacity eventually in my life. I feel like they need someone that likes numbers and stats and likes playing around with ideas on how to balance programs and all of that. And I feel like there's a bunch of people that make a decision and say that's it, and then they go on vacation. I mean, this year the Congress is in
Yeah,
Canary
what resort
Islands.
town? Oh,
Canary
Canary
Islands.
Islands.
Yeah. So so
Oh,
I'm sure
interesting.
that's going to be a very quick Congress.
Didn't
Um
they go to like Phuket in Thailand last time?
yeah, I think
Wasn't it
so.
something very luxurious last time?
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
don't have Thai resort money anymore. No White Lotus
Uh
money. Got it.
I
Okay.
don't know. But yeah, so oh, also of note, just really randomly, I was told yesterday that Skate America most likely is Lake Placid. I think the USFS is still ironing out some difficulties. Apparently, the first date that they had, they were having trouble scheduling, and then when they moved it to another date, it caused even more scheduling conflicts. So it looks like Lake Placid, which means in the last four pre-Olympic Skate Americas, this would be the third time that it's in Lake Placid. I already looked because I 100% planned on going to Skate America. I already looked. It's like you take a plane to Albany and then you have a 3 or 4 hour bus from Albany to Lake Placid. And the thing is, it's only once a day. It's like 10 a.m. So it's like I'm now having to schedule an additional 2 days to my trip just to get there. I could take I think there's a little charter flight that goes from Albany to into Lake Placid, but I don't know about these small planes. So I'm like,
Yeah, I'm
it
not
just
doing
for
that.
me, it doesn't sound like really worth the investment for me to I
It's
really
really
don't
not.
see the audience
Right.
is going
And
to
then
be very
it's
scarce like
and
if
it's
it
what high
stays
it's
if it stays.
altitude, right? What's the altitude of
Yeah,
Lake
I'm
Placid?
I'm not sure, but it's I just can't see. I don't remember the audiences.
Yeah,
Let's see, let's
as
look.
someone born and raised at sea level, I don't do well at elevation. Worse than all these poor athletes who have to skate in like Colorado Springs.
1,800
But
feet, so it's
okay, it's
not
not
it's
the
not like
worst.
Colorado
I'll be
Springs, but it's
okay if I
still it's
went.
still I live on the beach, so I'm like you. I'm used to this
I know, but we
flat.
live in like different parts of Florida, though. You live in
Yeah.
like
The
a
the
different
the
country,
water. Yeah,
essentially. Yeah, and
yeah,
I live in the
yeah,
middle of the woods and
yeah,
bugs.
yeah. But so if Skate America stays, like it sounds like it's getting finalized now. It sounds like also they might wait to announce until after the new CEO is all
I
into place.
I hope they
Um,
find another venue, honestly. I would really want to go. I don't
yeah,
want to go to Lake Placid. I'm probably not going to go to Lake Placid.
I would even consider going. I even looked at Skate Canada because now they're not back to back, and it would be easier for me to
Oh
travel. And
yeah.
Skate Canada even would be a whole chore to get to because there's not
Oh
direct
really?
flights, and yeah, it's
Because I was
Saskatoon,
considering
so
all because I took time off to go to Skate America and then it got switched with Angers, Grand Prix
yeah,
France. And even then I hear it's like a bit of a trek to get to. But of the three, it sounds the easiest.
yeah, probably honestly,
A flight to Europe and
probably.
then a train to Angers. It's like
Yeah.
sounds easier than going
The
to Lake
only thing
Placid
is
at this
I'll
point.
I'll be in that region right before that. So I'm like, I don't want to go all the way back to France. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
what
I'll
a
be
fun problem to have.
yeah, I know. So I was ideally trying at the beginning of the year to go to two Grand Prix, and now it looks like I might just say, never mind. And then just focus on nationals and worlds. But yeah, if it sticks with Lake Placid, I really don't imagine the crowd's going to be great, regardless of
If it's Lake
who they
Placid, I'll
get.
rethink nationals and possibly go
Yeah,
nationals worlds
yeah,
too. But we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. So, anything else, anything exciting you saw online this week or in the last few weeks in skating over the summer?
Oh, and skate. No, this is it. This was just like, I don't know. This was the biggest game changer for
Mhm.
me. Just Shibutani's coming back, Guillaume coming back was a bit of like, I'm sad, whatever, but I didn't see it truly making a big wave, other than maybe like, oh no, 4 through 6 might change. Whereas this, I'm like, oh wow, this could potentially shake everything up domestically here, internationally, at the Olympics. So I'm excited. And
Yeah.
that's it. I,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ride this until, August. When we
Until we see
see
how
these
they're
first
what level
senior
they're
Bs.
actually at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. If they,
Yeah.
if they go to what's the first North American senior B?
The
Yeah.
well, Lake Placid International is that one dance competition. I don't think that anyone that high
They're not
level would go
going.
there.
No, they're not
Yeah,
going.
but I think that the US centric international is no longer an
Oh,
event.
there's no more fall classic.
I don't
Okay.
know. There might be Boston or something now.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Um, but
There's
then
the
they
one in
also have
Houston
like
in July too, if they're that early and ready to kind of
yeah,
just get a preview. There's usually that. So I'll be curious to see that. Like, but I'm excited.
yeah, yeah,
I'm very much looking forward to next season now, and I was
yeah,
not. So
yeah. We'll be back, like I said, later throughout the summer.
yeah.
Start to really delve in on what the judges are looking for, the required elements, what we consider to be good. I would like to go over videos with you and we both
Oh
analyze
yeah.
why this is like a 0 or a +3 or whatever, because this is quantitative. This is going line by line in the rule book and saying this is why this should be this rather than us just spewing
Right.
this and
And if
people
y'all didn't
saying,
know that, there's a rubric.
yeah, yeah,
Judges are supposed to be following a rubric,
yeah,
and it's their interpretation of the rubric. So
yeah.
it's way
So
easier
I
than,
I want that
yeah,
on the screen. I want our faces on a very small part of the screen, and I want the
not at all.
video of what we're analyzing on the screen. And I want to say this is where the criteria should be, and this is where they should lose points, and this is where the final score should. The ISU actually did this in 2018. They came out with a set
Mhm.
of videos that was really good. It was actually one of the better things they've done in quite some time, and they went line by line, and it was two of the technical committee members at the time that were line by line going, okay, for me, this would be a +3 or a +4. This would be a level 3.
Mhm.
They really went into like very specific things. That's what I would like to do for
Yeah.
all the events, all of the especially the requirements for next year in the short programs and the rhythm dance and I know you made videos a few years ago that were highlighting all the key points and the steps and all the elements. So I would like to do that over the summer. Again, if you
Yeah.
guys have any idea of things that you want us to talk about, feel free, comment, email. I was so excited to see that email from the US champion because I feel like sometimes I'm talking into an abyss when I'm like, what are these scores? And then when you get reassured by other people that have been in the sport a long time and they see the
Mhm.
things almost the same way that I do, I'm happy that I'm not that off track or crazy. So yeah, any opinions you have, anything you want to see us really focus on, let us know. Email, write comments in the under the videos. Other than that, I don't think there's going to be any more big news. Maybe that potential third team, if that is actually accurate.
Oh, at this point, I hope
Um,
so. I hope. Yeah, I hope so.
maybe
Let's
it's
do it. Why
Fusarpoli
not?
and
Why not just be?
Margalio. Why not? Like, yeah. So,
Oh
uh,
God, there's gonna be so much bone cracking when they're skating if that were to be
uh,
the case. Oh,
yeah.
my
But other
ankles
than
hurt just
that,
hearing that.
I think that the biggest news that we'll have in the upcoming weeks is maybe program announcements. I know
Yeah.
that Misha G has been on social media focusing on the programs he's already choreographed for next year. One that I'm really excited about is a repeat program that is being brought back is Kazuki Tomono. He's bringing back his free skate from 2024, which I thought, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a piano piece that's very one note, but it's so
Yeah.
introspective and it's really, really nice. I'm so happy he's bringing it back. That was one of
Interesting.
my favorite programs that season. So that was one program I've seen that I'm already excited about. All the other ones, more or less, so far, I haven't really um, nothing big. I was trying to get Kevin Amos to skate to the White Lotus soundtrack, and I even got to the point that I was talking
Why
with the
is he not? Oh
composer.
my God.
I literally was talking with the composer about it. And I'm like, hey, there's a skater that will be going to the Olympics that is very highly ranked that I think would be great on this music. And the composer was excited, and that didn't pan out. He's going a different way, but
Oh my God. Someone needs
someone will skate
to.
to it.
You'll
Someone,
get
I
all the
literally,
tired, broken millennials will all be on
yeah,
board. if you
Yeah.
skate to White Lotus. Like,
You get all the younger ones too. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I
The
already cut
queen.
like a perfect short program piece if anyone wants it. Like I literally went in and I cut a 250 long program that I
I
think
need you
is
to
really
send
good
that to
music.
me just so
I
I can.
will.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for watching the skating session. We'll be back throughout the summer to do a lot of analysis, a lot of our opinions being thrown at you again. Again, if you have any opinions, let us know. But once again, thanks for watching. My name is Tony Wheeler.
And I'm Thomas Vu.
Have a great day.
Bye.